In the Buddhist tradition, reincarnation is represented as the wheel of life, which allows us multiple chances to come back to the wheel after death in order to live the number of lives needed to ultimately become perfect and be with God. This is called nirvana, aka liberation from the cycle of birth, life, and death. On An American Prayer, on the title track, Jim Morrison's lyrics mimic this Buddhist tradition.
O great creator of being, grant us one more hour to perform our art and perfect our lives.
Relating this to Buddhism, Morrison is saying, God, grant us one more life or time, since an hour is a unit of time. So grant us one more time to become perfect. Morrison said it himself that he referenced the Buddhist tradition when he answered a question regarding the song, The End. Morrison said, "The theme is the same as in Light My Fire, liberation from the cycle of birth, orgasm, and death." This is a direct reference to the wheel of life, almost verbatim, but he simply interchanged life with orgasm. More of Morrison's lyrics that refer to reincarnation, aka the cycle of birth, life, and death, are from his poem called The Movie.
The program for this evening is not new. You have seen this entertainment through and through. You've seen your birth, your life, and death. You might recall all of the rest. Did you have a good world when you died? Enough to base a movie on?
Also, because he says, did you have a good world when you died? After he talks about the cycle of birth, life, and death, I think that he was talking to himself. So keep that in mind. In Hinduism, lessons about reincarnation appear in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. More of Morrison's lyrics from An American Prayer provide a perfect segue to the Hindu concept of reincarnation.
Do you know we exist? Have you forgotten the keys to the kingdom? Have you been born yet, and are you alive? Let's reinvent the gods, all the myths of the ages. Celebrate symbols from deep elder forests. Have you forgotten the lessons of the ancient war?
The Bhagavad Gita tells the story of the lessons of the ancient war. Krishna, one of the most popular avatars of God, Vishnu, gives the warrior Arjuna lessons. Krishna told Arjuna, and I quote, "Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be." Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 12. And the following verse, chapter 2, verse 13, is as follows. As the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. End quote. And I would translate sober as being alert, awake, not still under the sedative or curse, as the TV series Once Upon a Time calls it. In Morrison's book, Wilderness, he writes, "She dances in a ring of fire." This is a direct reference to Shiva, or his counterpart, Kali. Both cosmic dancers. Shiva dances on a small person who represents ignorance. Shiva's dance attempts to destroy ignorance. Kali, who is time, hip rolls with Shiva under her feet. This hip roll moves time along. Shiva is awareness. So, time dances on awareness, which stomps out ignorance. Kali is an incarnation of Shakti, the divine feminine energy. Now, the ignorance that Shiva attempts to stomp out is the illusion of Maya, aka the Matrix. And Shiva, as Nataraja, his incarnation as Nataraja, dances in a ring of fire. Morrison references Shiva again in the song Moonlight Drive. Let's Swim to the Moon is a clever ripoff of the story about the Ganges River, in which Shiva agrees to let the Ganges flow from his locks. And Shiva wears a crescent moon at the top of his crown. So, while meditating on Shiva, one could swim up his locks to the moon. To me, this is reminiscent of another Eastern tradition, the Bhakti tradition, where the followers are called alvars or divers and are said to dive into the ocean of God's love. As I've stated earlier, I believe that Morrison was talking to himself in his lyrics. There are others who believe this as well. A quote from a bio on Morrison called Break On Through states, "The feeling of elusiveness Morrison's voice creates, as if he were singing for himself." End quote. Another quote from that book states, "What he found on the other side of those doors was a mirror, and he wound up focusing on his own reflection." End quote. An untitled poem from Wilderness seems to indicate this too, but in Morrison's own words. And I quote, "I'm not singing to an imaginary girl. I'm singing to you, myself." End quote. In another poem from An American Prayer, Morrison again talks about reincarnation. This poem is called Angels and Sailors.
I will never treat you mean. Never start no kind of scene. And I'll tell you every place and person that I've been.
Did you hear that? Did you all hear that? He said, I'll tell you every place and person that I've been. Okay? Then he talks about what kind of lives he has lived.
Always a playground instructor, never a killer.
So he's lived wholesome lives.
Always a bridesmaid. On the verge of fame or over, he maneuvered 2 girls into his hotel room.
Right here, I believe that these 2 girls are his own incarnations. Remember, he's talking about reincarnation.
One, a friend.
I believe the friend is a past life because he knows her. He calls her a friend.
The other, the young one, a newer stranger.
I believe the young one is a future incarnation because she's a newer stranger. Morrison talks about these girls in other works also and names them in the poems Stoned Immaculate and In That Year, in which he says, in that year, we had a great visitation of energy. Back in those days, everything was simpler and more confused. One summer night, going to the pier, I ran into 2 young girls. The blonde was called Freedom, the dark one, Enterprise. I believe that he ran into these girls in his mind because he usually speaks of them being around water. Remember, he said he ran into them while going to the pier. In hypnosis, we are told that it is rather easy to go into a hypnotic state by imagining a body of water. Morrison even calls them the girls of the island in celebration of the lizard.
For 7 years I dwelt in the loose palace of exile, playing strange games with the girls of the island.
Also on celebration of the lizard, there's the poem A Little Game, where Morrison explains how he goes into a hypnotic state.
Once I had a little game. I like to crawl back in my brain. I think you know the game I mean. I mean the game called Go Insane.
I believe that is one of the ways that he used to connect to and interact with other realms. I think he also connected via LSD and perhaps dreams.
Now I have come again to the land of the fair and the strong and the wise. Brothers and sisters of the pale forest, children of night, who among you will run with the hunt? Now night arrives with her purple legion. Retire now to your tents and to your dreams. Tomorrow we enter the town of my birth. I want to be ready.